Simplicity makes some of the best cutting mowers on the planet, but we still need to maintain them to keep that quality of cut up. So today we're going to look at leveling the mower deck to make sure we're getting an even cut from left side to right side and front to back. Let's take a look how we do this. On most lawnmowers, the mower deck is suspended or, or hung from the frame of the lawn tractor. So we got to look at a bunch of different things on a normal lawn tractor, such as the air pressure in the tires, left to right, front to back, things like that, and then the length of those components that it's being hung from. On our Simplicity, it's a little bit different. These decks ride on the ground on this set of the rear rollers here. So the first thing we want to look at is the cleanliness of our rear rollers, because if there's buildup on those, that's going to affect how that deck rides on the ground. Now what I have here is a Simplicity Regent with a 38-inch deck. You can see the full rollers behind it here. So when we lower the deck down from transport mode to free float, we can see there these rollers are actually down on the ground, and that's what sets our height of cut from left to right. The first thing we want to look at is cleanliness of that. So you can see I've got some buildup. I've been doing some projects around here, some trenching in that. I had to mow and got mud on these rollers. So I'm just using a little scraper here to clean these up before we get started. All right, the next thing we want to do is put our lawn tractor on a flat piece of ground, preferably concrete. You can use the lawn or anything gravel if you really want to. The key is here that it's relatively flat. It doesn't really matter that it's level the way this deck rides. We just need to make sure it's flat. After we're on a flat surface, so I just pulled it in the garage here, got a nice area to work. We're going to put the deck at the height we normally cut at. Now this shouldn't affect things too much, but I always find it best. Let's get it optimized where we're actually going to cut. So we got to turn the key on here, use our toggle switch, and normally cut right in the middle of 3 here. So let's put it there. Deck from transport down to free float, so it's sitting on the rollers. All right, the next step is to get our baseline data. So I'm going to measure to the bottom of the deck here, right on the front by the discharge there, at our height of cut. So it looks like I have 2 5/8. So I'm going to write that down here. 2 5/8 of an inch. So let's go over to the other side and see where we're at. It's important to note here the shape of this deck changes a little bit. And I measured at the lower point on the other side. So I'm curious to see if we come down to this point on the deck, is that what I'm going to actually look at? And yeah, if I come here, I'm at 2.5 inches. So I'm off an 1/8 inch. So all adjustments have to be made from the non-discharge side of the deck. What we actually have going on here is an eccentric nut or an eccentric bolt. Basically, this is held in place with the nut here so it doesn't move. But once we loosen this up, we can rotate the outer hex, and that will change. It's kind of an oblong or a cam shape there to where we can drive this linkage down or up just on this side independently of the other side. Otherwise, there's a cross shaft basically that ties the both sides together. So this is the way to make minor adjustments to this side. So let's take a 9/16 wrench. We can loosen this up, and then we can turn the hex while we are taking our measurement here and get to 2 5/8. And actually I can see this rotated a little bit while we were loosening it. Actually drove us down just below 2.5. So let's move this thing and see if we can get this brought up a little bit. All right, so a 32 millimeter wrench fits this hex. I know most of you probably aren't going to have that, so a pair of pliers or something like that probably would work, or a 32 millimeter socket, obviously. But I can visually see what's happening there. So as I'm turning it this way, we can see the deck is coming up. So if I take my measurement here, we need to come up a little bit more to get our 2 5/8. So let's see if we can get some more out of this. Yeah, we're coming up. There, we're right on our 2 5/8. So I'm going to hold this in place with my large wrench, take my 9/16 and tighten up that smaller nut that clamps that in place. All right, we'll double check. Yeah, we're at 2 5/8. Go back to the discharge side. See if we remain there. Now, I was wondering if this was going to happen. So since we lifted up the other side, we've actually come down on this side. So now this side is just below 2.5. So what I think we're going to have to do is go back to the other side and target 2 9/16. And hopefully we can get in the medium here. Now this is splitting hairs a little bit. I did not notice a problem with my mower deck, but I had a few comments on the other videos, requesting leveling their deck. So I thought, let's give it a try. It was off a little bit. We're off, say, a 16th. Let's go give it another try on the other side. Okay, round 2 here. We're going to target a 2 5/16. Getting these monster wrenches in here is a bit of a challenge all on its own. Let's see here. Okay. I'm just going to come down just a hair more to get this thing perfect. All right, good. Now I'm going to lock this in place. Now that takes care of the side-to-side leveling on our deck here. And if you read the manual, what it tells you to do is measure to the blades. And I agree, that is the most accurate way to do it because the deck is not perfect. It's a piece of stamped steel. The problem with that, on the discharge side, that's not a big deal. We can rotate the blade into the discharge chute and take a measurement. How do we measure to the blade on this side? So the problem is, yeah, I can get a tape in there or a scale or something like that and put the blade over to it, but my eyeballs can't see there. So I use this method. I think it's pretty close. Is it perfect? I agree it's not. And then front to back. So let's take a look at how we level front to back. So the manual, again, with that, says the same thing. Rotate the blades forward and take a measurement from the front of the blade and the back of the blade and level the deck in that manner. How do we do that? How do my eyeballs get in there? It'd be great if this thing was elevated up on a platform maybe, and then you could do it, but it's just not practical. So if we read the manual, how to level the deck front to back and left to right, it tells us to adjust the tire pressure to their recommended settings. And left to right, that does not make a difference. Front to back, I agree it does. I have chosen to stray away from those stock air pressure settings. I've done a video detailing this. One of the things I don't like is the rear tire traction, especially in reverse. The way the deck is designed, those rollers are designed to go forward. When you reverse, it tends to bind up and really kind of jam into the ground. And that makes traction loss very easily at the rear. So I've dropped the air pressure down to a couple PSI. I think they say like 12 to 14 in the manual. I have strayed away from that, so I don't want to go back to that because that has provided a big improvement. So I'm going to check the level as it is. What's way more practical in my opinion than trying to measure up to the blades is just taking a level of the deck. So for this, we do need to make sure that we're on level ground. So the floor here is basically 0. Now this is not a precision level, but close enough for cutting grass. So we're 0 there, and then I just like to use this flat part of the deck, and I'm zeroed out there also. So things are good. I don't need to make an adjustment, but if I did, what I would do, take this rod here that ties to the front linkage, follow that back under the deck, and we can see here it's a threaded check section with a nut front and back. And so what we actually have to do to adjust that is to loosen those nuts here, front and back, and slide this collar either this way and then tighten the nuts back up, or slide it back to correct that situation. So I hope that helps you out leveling your Simplicity mower deck. The manual does walk you through it, but as I said, that doesn't seem real practical when I went through it. So a few little tips there on how to do it. Luckily, front to back, we were good today. But if you need to, you can make that adjustment too. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you like this. It's free, and it tells the folks over at YouTube that you enjoy my content and directs more people over to it. Thanks again. Adios.